kind of strike today is to discuss why islands are actually not on the outskirts of the discussion of esports globally, and why they are core to the discussion of esports ecosystems. So I have here esports in the Hawaiian Archipelago. Again, I'm not just concentrating on one island, I'm concentrating on the archipelago itself. To say that islands are often not by themselves, but actually are always grouped with other islands. And that these islands, although share similarities, are also quite distinct in how they operate. And so we're going to be looking at that. And again, the goal of this keynote is to kind of strike a tone in the sense that this is a really, really great time to think about collaboration. Because this aligns with some really great topics of research. I'm also doing island-based esports research at the moment. And it's just perfect timing again to be in this room talking about this overall. So about myself, I am again Nyle Sky Kauweloa. I am an interdisciplinary faculty member at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I did my PhD in communication information sciences on the topic of esports, and specifically the topic of college esports. So technically I'm the first person to do a dissertation on this topic of college esports overall. I also am looking at, in terms of research, looking at the growth and the change and the evolution of higher education in relation to the adoption of esports programs in North America. Over the past, it's been 7 years now, college esports has emerged as a really powerful movement on university campuses. Back in 2014, we had the first college esports program emerge in Chicago in a small university called Robert Morris University. Actually, I did my first paper on that college when I was doing my PhD. I went down to Chicago and I actually did research looking at their program and then looking at other programs. So I'm very much interested in this topic in terms of research. But also, most recently, I was able to take part in what I believe, Toby, may be the biggest international interdisciplinary work in esports with the esports handbook at Rutledge that Toby and some other colleagues were the editors for. So I was able to participate in that book and writing a book chapter. In particular, I wrote about, and it's also a stream of research that I'm also going down as well, is looking at esports infrastructures and looking at how esports venues, esports arenas, and also how esports itself deals with space and how space is configured in relation to technologies. So I'm looking at how things are built out and used in esports in terms of infrastructures overall with that. So again, this is really just a key time for us to be talking about this topic and overall just being here together. My other hat is I'm the director of UH Esports. So UH Esports began in 2018. We are a program, and so I have a picture here of a couple of our teams. We are a program of roughly 120 students just at the Manoa campus. We play across 9 different titles. And it's a program that's just exciting. This is a program that began as a club, as many programs do on college campuses, but emerged as really a leading edge college esports initiative for the university across our system. And so I'm very proud to be able to hold that hat with our program overall. Now, I wanted to kind of kick off the keynote to kind of highlight a base understanding of where we sit when we discuss islands. And one of the things I want to talk about is to say that I think we actually all share islands as a either key point of where we live. So again, I was thinking about some of the students that are in the tournament itself. So we have students from Korea, we have students from the UK, we have students, of course, from Norway. I'm not sure how many of them actually think of themselves as related to islands, but in many ways they should be. So for example, in the UK, technically you guys, are one of the biggest islands in the world. With Greenland, with the UK, with Japan's main island. Second of all, we have students from South Korea here. Technically, and again, I've lived in South Korea for 10 years. South Korea is literally my second home. I go there every year to do esports related work. South Korea is more an island than not an island. Even though it is not technically an island, it operates very much and its culture is very similar to what we have here in Hawaii. They're incredibly self-sufficient. So anybody that's been to South Korea, my first time when I landed in South Korea back in 2002, one of the first things I said to myself is that this country could close itself off and probably just sustain itself. It is incredibly self-sufficient, right? So South Korea, in many respects, reminds me of an island. And they have one of the most beautiful islands, actually, besides the islands that we were on here, called Dokdo. Dokdo is off the south of South Korea. I've been there about 5 times. It's a beautiful place. And again, when South Koreans think of Hawaii, they actually think of Dokdo. That's kind of their second Hawaii. So it's really great. So again, when we look at the slide here, what do we mean by islands? And again, a very basic definition of islands comes out of the UN. And it really is a very basic definition. And just to sort of look at what we're discussing here, islands, as they defined it, are naturally formed land surrounded by water, which remains above water at high tide. Right? It's a very basic geographical definition of islands. So when you talk about islands that way, you get a multitude of examples of what can constitute an island, right? So we have islands that are big, islands that are small. We have archipelagos, and we have just a huge population. Like I have here at the top of the slide here, around 600 million humans living on islands themselves overall. Okay, so that's what I want to kind of like start off with, is to say that our situation with islands are key in this keynote. But at the same time, islands are more than just countable objects or classifiable objects. Okay, they are location spaces in which indigenous populations draw meaning and draw sustenance. Okay, that's important for us to really highlight here. And so what I want us to kind of think about for the next 2 days is to say in what ways, and I'm providing here some conceptual tools, in what ways can we think about islands if we were to think about it in a research perspective, beyond just land formations, okay? So when I think about islands as Native Hawaiian, and it's also a broader context of how islands are studied, we think about them as we noted before, isolated and bounded, okay? And in some respects, that is very true. I throw out the word kahakai, which means shore or beach, okay? So when we think about an island, when you see a map and you look top down to a map, what circumscribes an island really is the shores. That's what bounds the island, right? And so we begin there. But next we also have apmana, which means currents, okay? So currents also challenge the idea of boundedness, okay? And what that means is that currents are relational. This is what brings people back and forth between islands and also between mainland and islands itself, okay? And the third idea that I have here is resilience, which is not necessarily a geographical formation, but comes from the silverwood plant, the ahinihi. And it is a tremendously resilient plant that lives on the volcanic rocks of mountainous areas of different islands across the Hawaiian chain. And they live in situations that are, again, very hot, incredibly immersive in UV rays, also dry, and really not a location in which you would find any type of life form, or you could imagine any type of life form being there in these locations overall. And so I want to kind of begin there and say that these are ideas that are really important for islanders themselves when they think about themselves, because there is one way to look at an islander or an island from a third person perspective, but it also is another thing to look at islands and islanders from a first person perspective. And the first person perspective, the native perspective, is really filled with actually a lot of contradictions in some respects. Right? As I quote here, we have this idea of islands as bounded locations, but also islands as relational, deeply relational. Okay, islands that are sometimes quite inhabitable in terms of what we're experiencing with climate change today. But at the same time, islands that bring on cultural traits or biomimicry that allows for resilience and perseverance to shine through overall. Okay, so what I want to kind of tap into here is to say, how do we talk about esports and sustainability within Hawaii? Okay, now there are 3 points that I want to mention when it comes to sustainability with esports in Hawaii. Number one is to say that it is firmly grounded in the educational system here in Hawaii. So if you look at different esports ecosystems across different locations, for example, LA, Chicago, Texas, again, I'm using very North American examples here. The ecosystem is, or has been, framed within a professional scene, okay? But in Hawaii, that is not the case, right? And for many states, esports emerges as a realistic outcome through education or through educational institutions, okay? So that is a really key point that we have here. Number two, esports is, I should say college esports or esports in education is slowly evolving to take on connections, relationships, and interactions with the professional industry itself. So legitimacy is no longer just baked into just having a professional team that sits alone or does something in isolation. That the nexus between education and professional esports has slowly been tightening. Again, ever since 2014, when the first esports program emerged in Chicago, you've seen universities invest more and more into esports infrastructures. Okay, so I'll be talking about the Overwatch League in a few slides. And the reason why we were able to work with the Overwatch League is because, and there were a number of reasons, but the infrastructure was there to do something. And you see more and more schools being able to invest in infrastructure, and you're seeing more and more professional leagues or professional teams lean on to educational institutions, okay? Especially when we have what's called an esports winter, okay? A time in which the esports industry is pulling back, right? Okay, lastly, again, when I go into the sustainability talk, esports, for us at the University of Hawaii, over the past 6 years, I have positioned it to look at workforce development in conjunction with working with Good Jobs Hawaii since this last year. So I have pivoted very hard to say that it is important for us not only to provide a place of community, a place of competition, and a place of research, but now workforce development is probably one of the bigger leading edges of where our program sits today. Okay. Now, esports within the UH system. Okay, so this is the UH system, most of the UH system. We are a 10 campus system. Currently, we have 8 of our campuses engaging in esports in one respect or another. That being a team, a club, a few kids getting together, or a full-blown program, which is at the Manoa campus. So we have at the left side UH Manoa, UH West Oahu, our 2 community colleges on Oahu, UH Maui, Hilo, Kauai, and Hilo CC. We have 2 campuses that we haven't engaged with yet, but in the past 2 years, okay, so the system side of UH Esports has only emerged in the last 2 years. We have been able to do something with esports with almost every single campus, and it hasn't been a tremendously hard lift to get the students out and doing something, because as you guys have seen here at Maui, we have some very dedicated both staff but students who are just eager to do something, okay? And that's been my experience with reaching out across the different campuses overall, right? So our system is where sustainability begins and really where it ends, okay? We have been blessed since 2018 to have a university leadership that has supported UH Esports at Manoa, again, since 2018 with President David Lasner, who sadly is retiring. This is his last month. But I have not met with any significant resistance with my work at UH across the system with esports. And that has been very rare. Of course, it's getting, I think, easier and easier as we see other colleges take on esports because that gives them confidence. But we had support from President David Lasner, from the executive group, from the Academy of Creative Media, and from the School of Communications at Manoa. I've had support almost from the get-go. And I still kind of scratch my head why that happens. I honestly did not imagine that. But I began teaching our esports course back in 2018. And I'm still teaching it today. Technically, it's the longest running esports course in North America that's been taught at the university level. So we have some amazing things that we can be proud of overall. Okay, when it comes to sustainability away from the UH system, okay? Again, I draw upon this idea of the Aumana, the currents, okay? The system has, when I first worked on the systems esports part of it, it was very much me looking at the boundedness of our islands, or our archipelago, okay? But again, looking at that cultural metaphor of Aumana, in doing what we're doing, we're noticed by outside factors or outside entities, okay? And what that means is that those currents started to bring things to us before we actually started to reach out outside the islands, okay? And what I mean by that is that in 2021, 2022, we hosted the Overwatch League, okay? The Overwatch League is no more, right? It's too bad, it was a great league, it folded up. But at the time in 2021, 2022, it started in 2017, 18, I believe. It was technically one of the bigger leagues in esports in the world, okay? Their goal, the Overwatch League, was to actually start what's called a home and away stand. Their home and away stand was basically to mimic traditional sport by having every single game played in their league at a city of the home team. Okay, it was revolutionary. No other league had really tried to do it with as much investment as the Overwatch League had done it. And their opening date to do this was 2020. Naturally, that was one of the worst times to pick it up because that's when COVID began. They had to immediately fold those plans. They were in crisis mode. And then at the end of 2020, I get a phone call by Activision Blizzard. Again, I'm assuming most people do know Activision Blizzard as a publisher. Okay, they were recently bought out by Microsoft for around $70 billion, the biggest acquisition of a video game company. They called us at UH Manoa and wanted to actually hold their summer tournaments, okay, the World Championships on our campus. So I literally thought that was a prank phone call. I was about to just click that phone call, but I just stayed on a little bit longer to find out that it was actually real, and I decided to see where this would go. Okay, it was an amazing partnership in which we had close to 40 students take part in running the Overwatch League over 2 years. So we put out an interest form for people to participate in the league. Again, students. Interestingly, that form migrated out of UH, and we got students from NYU, from Berkeley, from UCLA, all signing up, wanting to take part in a UH activity. And it was one of the few times that I got to flex and say, sorry, you should have gone to UH. Literally, that's what I had to say. And it allowed our students to actually learn by shadowing the league. The league itself brought in their entire staff, their entire broadcast crew, 9 different professional teams, all to our Manoa campus, a total of 10 times, 10 flights back and forth. And it came to a point that our kids became so proficient in actually learning how to set up the tournament. So they had to learn networking, security, protocols, integrity checks, comms, player support, and broadcasts. They had a whole week, 10 different times in which they got a run through. So around half those 10 weeks, the students themselves became proficient enough that one time the actual broadcast crew missed their flight to Hawaii, and the tournaments were starting on Monday. Nobody was here. Our students actually brought the league up by themselves. Nobody knew it, don't tell anybody, but it was actually our students that actually brought and leveled up their broadcast to be prepared to run on Monday with no help, right? So it was an incredibly unique thing that again, like I said, it was that Aumana, the idea of the currents bringing us and we having to be prepared, okay, for that. So I do want to just run a short clip of what we did with that. Oh, you know what? I need to have internet. Sorry about that. Do you know if we have any
You should be able to just log in with your UH.
Okay, so I can just pop in this one.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay, if not, I can just.
Take your credentials. Yeah, I can log in too.
Yeah, it could be.
individual style.
When Overwatch contacted us, I was very much surprised.
Bring these teams from the Western and Eastern region to really crown a champion. Okay, we need to level out the playing field. That's what we all want. Hawaii was that place.
It's Aloha, baby, that set themselves out for a fun in Hawaii.
Where are we going?
What?
One of the biggest priorities really was to figure out how to get global competition more regularly.
As you recall, in the 2020 Grand Finals, we flew two of the North American teams over to Korea. They had to do a 2-week quarantine. We wanted to find ways in the future to make it better for our players.
How can we solve this problem? And try our best to think outside of the box. I've only been in Hawaii for a couple hours now, and you can see my beautiful hotel background. They call me the head of the Overwatch League, and this is the room that they gave me, but it is amazing here. We really liked in the 2020 season the monthly tournament format, but the fact that those tournaments had to be regional given all of the travel and immigration issues.
It was rough not being able to see, Fleta, who was the MVP, not be able to play against some of the teams over in the Western League.
I'm Sky Kauweloa. I'm a PhD student at the University of Hawaii, and I actually do esports research. So I was a bit worried about the ping because Hawaii has a reputation for having ping that's probably a little bit higher than most places.
If latency was too high, we would not be here. After extensive testing, we found that we can have both teams in Asia and Hawaii play at the same latency, which is huge.
That really was the aha moment. Getting the two teams close enough to our tournament server where we have great connections and high quality Overwatch. There's an undersea internet cable connecting Hawaii directly to Tokyo. The second step for us was then to say, okay, we need to level out the playing field.
Over the offseason, we worked with Team 4 to help build this minimum latency feature for our 2021 season to allow for a more even match play. And we even have a direct line from the University of Hawaii that we're playing from to the Tokyo servers, which allows that latency to be as low as possible across the entire Pacific Ocean.
When Overwatch contacted us, I was very much surprised because they asked us if we could do something on campus. And I was just thinking, oh gosh, we don't have the venue, we don't have the space. But what they wanted to do was something a bit different.
The University of Hawaii has been a great host for us for this event. The biggest things for us really that we needed our help on were getting the right setups in place, so finding rooms on campus where the teams can compete, and then also, again, to make sure that from an IT perspective, we were squared away.
We wanted to make sure that students were learning from this opportunity. The kids themselves, the students themselves, will have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take part in a tournament, a massive, one of the biggest tournaments in esports.
While we've brought in, our own IT and events and comp ops folks really to run the event, it's been really cool as well to be able to work with the University of Hawaii to create some fun learning opportunities for their students involved in the esports program.
When I heard about it, I was thinking, gosh, this is interesting. But it was always something that I believed Hawaii could do. And so we hope that students stay and actually develop the scene locally.
Health and safety was always top of the list immediately once COVID became the headline in 2020. And that's no different going to 2021.
We wanted to make sure that we continue to follow all of the right safety guidance.
We're making sure these players are safe for each other. For us as a staff, we're doing the same protocols ourselves. It actually comforts them, knowing that we are taking it as seriously as we are. We found the solution in Hawaii to bring these teams from the Western and Eastern region to really crown a champion, because that's what we all want. As fans, as the league, and as the players.
It was a pleasure working with the Overwatch League team.
We don't know how the pandemic will resolve or unravel. My hope is that as the world continues to get safer and open up, that we're able to start going back to more live events and things like that. But certainly for 2021, Hawaii has been a great option for us. We're excited about it, and we'll see what the future holds.
All right, so that is, again, a glimpse of this idea of what is taking place here in Hawaii, how we're able to make things work. And again, as you guys come here to Maui, you can, I think, see some of the similar sort of like motifs that are taking place, coming to Hawaiian landy here, enjoying the weather, enjoying the sun, and also just kind of figuring things out. That's what we had to do as an island, is to kind of figure things out, because when Overwatch came and wanted to do an event with us, they weren't taking a particular sort of island-centric perspective. They wanted, when they initially called me, they wanted to basically come in and have this as a rental discussion and literally say that they're gonna come in, do their event, and ditch, and we wouldn't even know we were there. And that was, again, that's how an esports league looks at things, right? It's, they wanna come in, rent facilities, rent infrastructure, don't create too much commotion. And again, this was also during COVID, so it's completely understandable. Where, from an island perspective, right, from somebody that wants to create industry here in Hawaii, I was like, no, we can't do that. This is too big of an opportunity. And so I proposed to them that we bring on interns. And they were not reluctant, but they were just kind of, oh, this is interesting. We never heard about this before. Like, how should we do this? Especially during COVID. And they said they wanted to bring in only 3 interns. Meanwhile, when I put out the interest form, I had close to 200 students sign up for it. And so I was like, let's see if we can do more. And it was me giving them ideas. Sorry, they're not giving me ideas. So it was me giving them ideas in which, you know, how could we pull this off? How could we bring on, like we did bring on 200 students, but we brought on 40 students. How could we bring them on in a way that was safe, but also impactful for the students, and also helpful to the league? And we figured it out, okay? At the end of the day, we figured it out and how we did that, right? And so that's an important discussion point that I wanted to bring up as part of the theme of why islands are important. Second of all, is I want to also look at this idea, sorry, I got my presentation notes here. I wanted to look at this idea of going from things coming to us, right? Those currents coming to us. Now, we've completed the Overwatch League. We've gained confidence over the 2 years to say that our program has been pretty amazing. Now that Almana is pushing out, the currents are pushing out. We are now trying to shape esports from an island perspective, okay? And what happened is in 2023 and 24, for the past 5 years, I've been in talks with Genji, and we've been trying to figure out how can we partner up in a way that's mutually beneficial to us. Those conversations fell flat right before COVID, and it was unfortunate because COVID really kind of sucked the energy out of those discussions. We revisited those discussions in 2022, and what we decided is to say that let's create an internship program or exchange program in which they send students to us and we send students to them. Okay, this is the conversation we had back in 2018, technically. Who was going to send what first? That was the chicken and egg problem. Were they going to send students to us or were we going to send students to them? I decided it's probably easier for us to send students first to Korea, okay? Because we have a lot of UH Esports students that are interested in Korean culture. That K-pop, K-movies, K-literature. Korea is through and through a very dynamic topic that our students just absolutely love. Okay, so we created a 5-year partnership in which we sent about 21 students from 2023 to 2024, around 21 students total, to work, live, and play in Seoul, South Korea for 1 month in the summer of 2023 to 2024. They were slotted into 3 positions: communications and business operations, competitions operations, PR and management, and broadcast. So again, we see this idea of islands being there, needing to be ready for our opportunities, and now islands being ready to start to shape industry and also to take part in shaping industry itself. So this is important because it's an evolution of what we've done over the past 5 years. One of, again, being willing and ready to take on these opportunities, 2, starting to shape that conversation overall, okay? Now, I want to just run this second clip to show you the type of intercultural exchanges we've had with South Korea in those 2 years. What's important to note here is that in the 2 years, Gen G, because of our internships, has actually extended their education division of their business. They were expecting 4 to 5 students at most to come from Hawaii. Like I said, we've sent up already 21 students to Hawaii. So this is technically the largest contingent of foreign students to work in the esports industry in South Korea ever so far. Okay, so again, a really pivotal moment for us.
From the college campus to the Korean Palace, 7 UH Manoa students spent 3 weeks of their summer trailblazing a brand new program, studying abroad at Gen G Esports, one of Korea's top professional gaming organizations. This international gaming brand has won many accolades and championships, and now has expanded its sights into education, and is looking to change the game with the way students and parents alike look at pro gaming and the career potential the esports industry has.
For me, I wanted you guys to actually have a jump start on your career. That was the whole purpose of this design of the program. Because I know students who are signed up are passionate about either the field, education or marketing, and esports. And just having that first step into an actual working environment, and especially in an international working environment, will give you a different perspective. Maybe the good case is that you find yourself being at the right place here at Gen G. So, but then now you can kind of have those professional skills so they can step up after you guys graduate.
A big part of the practicum was the cultural aspect of going to Korea and experiencing it firsthand. Students got to fill their bellies on dishes like sanakji and yuke, fresh octopus and raw beef tartare, and even explore the historical grounds of Gyeongbokgung, the original royal palace.
And cultural highlights, I think the biggest highlight for me would have been visiting one of the royal palaces, getting to dress up in a hanbok and kind of step back in time to before South Korea and Seoul was this big metro city. Kind of just take it all in and enjoy the scenery.
While a blast from the past is always fun, the students also got to enjoy the more modern comforts of Korea, from PC bongs, which are large internet cafes with powerful gaming computers and refreshments just the press of a button away. They also got to explore Korean esports firsthand.
I've gotten to just like geek out as an esports fan. Normally I'm rooting for NA, and as soon as all the NA teams get knocked out, I go straight to rooting for Korean teams. It's been kind of wild to get to work at one of the teams that I always like end up rooting for when Worlds and international tournaments comes around, and it's fun to get to feel the energy that Korean esports really brings to the table.
The practicum program had the students split in groups, one working on education projects where students got to assist in the development of programs that Gen G are implementing in their academy systems, the other creating marketing campaigns and participating with Gen G's in-person fan events, getting to engage with the esports community in Korea from the view of fans in the stands to the back office, where the planning goes from ideas to experiences.
So the first thing I knew about the practicum was that there was going to be a very high amount of like work, and I was pretty well prepared for that. And of course, like there is a lot of work. I'm part of the marketing group, and you're recently assigned a global fan engagement project, which we have to create a membership program for the Gen G entire nation of the sport, and along with getting fan engagement for the recent Worlds that's going to be held in Korea for League of Legends. Along with that, my main project, which was assigned by Nicole, was the UH education program that they're doing with in collaboration with Saudi Arabia. It's been really fun though. Like, I'm really glad that I get to work on something Overwatch. It's my favorite year.
After their 3 weeks, the students had glowing reviews to give of their time spent learning, working, and growing both as people and professionals.
For what I'm doing right now, creating lesson plans through the eSport, through Gen G, I would highly recommend like this curriculum or practicum because it would give you an idea of how things work, how things can change, and all that stuff.
All right, so I want to highlight a really unique outcome of us going out and again shaping the conversation around esports globally. Because of those Gen G internships, Joe Marsh, who was the CEO of T1, came to my class in 2023, flew, I mean, he was, again, it's just one of those things where I asked the question why. he wanted to just stop by my class on his way to Korea. So he flew in, stopped by for a full day, and met with my students in our UH Esports program. That one moment allowed me to propose a proposition to say, would Joe take on an intern? T1 does not do this. So Gen G is open to internships. This is part of their operations. They have an actual global esports education divisions. T1 does not look like Gen G. But we were able to find an internship for Jasmine Hurrio. It was the only person that's been able to get a college internship at T1 besides one other person that we know of from the University of Pennsylvania, who was an MBA grad from UPenn. And the reason why he was able to do that is because Jasmine was in my Esports and Society course that I teach at School of Communication. He was so impressed with her knowledge of the LCK league that he was like, who is this girl? If you let me have her for 6 months, I will open up an internship for her, right? And so we talked and we prepared her. She prepared actually for a full year. She took 3 Korean courses, right? So the students that go to Gen G do not need to speak Korean, right? Because, and again, in Korea, people are able to converse in English quite well. But in the T1 offices, it is heavily Korea and China based. And so of course the employees at T1 do speak English, but they prefer not to. So we prepared her for about a good year to bring up her skills in Korean, to go and work at T1 for 6 months, in which she was also an international student at Yonsei at the same time, right? So this is a very special outcome of that conversation of the islands being able to shape what's important about the industry in reflection to what's important about our values. Again, we are very happy and very lucky to be able to do these things because in 2022, we were recognized as the best collegiate esports program in North America. We were competing with 500 other colleges. Our second competitor that was right behind us in getting that award was Warwick at UK. So we were the top 2 in contention for this prize. Now finally, we've gone from esports ecosystems within the system itself. We've looked at esports as its relationship to the professional scenes, the professional scene, I should say. Our final topic that is really important when discussing about island-based esports is where are we going now? And jobs, careers, and workforce development is where things are heading quite aggressively. And I wanted to throw out this stat. The reason why workforce is such a big part of the discussion is that over the 2 years that I brought students to South Korea, when they've come back, they've gone through this high, they come back to Hawaii, and they hit a low again. And the reason why is that they say, Sky, you've literally shown me the North Star. You show me the future of where things should be. What's next? And I didn't have an answer for that, right? I was literally just teasing, like, bringing students to Korea, having a great time for 1 month, letting them dive deep into the Korean esports industry, and them loving it, right? They were working from to be honest, the Korean work ethic is pretty intense, but they were loving it, right? They came back and they're like, what's next? I want to create something in esports, and I want to do it in a way that is sustainable. It allows me to live where I am, right? But it's not realistic, right? What I graduate each year and what exists in the industries locally are 2 different planetary discussions, right? They don't exist in any way in any sort of orbital sphere. So this academic year, I have had the immense pleasure of working with the Good Jobs Hawaii folks in outlining 3 courses that have tackled the question, can we, in whatever manner, create some type of pathway or pipeline in which students go through the university system, either that could be at the community college, could be a 4-year college, go through the UH system and come out the other end with some type of employable outcome, okay? So the Good Jobs Hawaii grant is a grant, and again, you folks can correct me on the details, but it was a $35 million grant that was targeting 4 different sectors of the Hawaii economy, that being healthcare, clean energy, IT tech, IT and tech, as well as creative industries, right? And the creative industries part was an interesting element to it because it allowed us to open up discussions around esports. And it was a new part of the mandate, right? It was not something that's been there and existed because largely it's been in film, I believe, that really held that manner. So working with Nicolette and Sherman, we decided to outline a full year, 3 courses, 9 credits pathway in which the students in their first course would be networked with industry veterans from Hawaii that made it into industry. Okay, that was a really important part, and I just completed that class this semester. The second part of it is getting them to actually now take on internships within the industry. And that's going to happen in the summer 2025. And the goal is to say, is there an employable outcome that we can register here? The question is not so much, again, the goal ultimately is to say, can we get a job? But in the creative industry sector, the word job is a very sort of like slippery slope conceptual idea here. At the very minimum, can we get an employable outcome? And that's what we're looking for, in this discussion in this sector. The hope is to replicate something that I've been working on the side, not just through Good Jobs Hawaii itself, but ideally, hopefully, it does filter into the Good Jobs Hawaii discussions to say that it's required me as an educator, but also as a Native Hawaiian scholar, to say, can we actually find people embedded in the industry that have an island perspective? And we have been able to do that, most recently with NVIDIA. NVIDIA came and visited our campus back in April of 2024. And 4 AI engineers, they're squatting on the bottom, on the right, came in and they wanted to talk with our students and to say, could they set up a partnership in which they talk with specifically gamers, because they want to hire esports students or gamers within our university to take on entry-level AI generative engineering jobs, okay? And when our students heard about that, they were absolutely ecstatic. And they were kind of scratching their heads as well because Kyle, who's on the right, again, he's squatting, he actually asked for them to prepare a gaming resume. He wanted to know what games they played, how long have they played it, what level they are, what groups do they belong in. The reason why is that NVIDIA is working on some very interesting AI language models related to games itself. And they need gamers to actually help train these models, okay? So I'm glad to report, in October, they hired 5 of the students that you see in there. Beginning salary, $60,000, right off the bat, right? So we just had dinner 2 weeks ago at Waikiki. The goal is to hire 20 more, right? So that is our hope, right? At the end of the day, is to replicate this type of model in which students can not only, again, get a good job, and again, for the students that are looking at good jobs, they're not asking to be rich, right? They're just asking for livable wages, they're asking for benefits, and they're asking for some type of professional growth, okay? And more importantly, they're asking, can we stay in Hawaii, right? That is the definition of what their understanding of a good job overall, okay? Yes?
Okay, are those remote jobs or are they going into an office? And are those students that were hired already graduates with a degree, or are they like still getting their degree and working at the same time?
Yeah, so those are remote. So they're just in Hawaii now.
That's awesome.
There's options to say if they wanted to come to San Francisco to work at the headquarters. They're looking at that. They are students, except for one.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so not bad to be getting 60 grand and still, in your junior year, right? Right. But again, it requires that island-centric perspective. Just like with Overwatch, when they came in, they called me. They were not discussing or not orienting themselves from an island perspective. And at the end of the day, when they did orient themselves from an island perspective, they actually understood that it was to the benefit of the league itself. Okay. So what are the next steps? In this evolution from looking at UH Esports as a system to looking at UH Esports as engaging with the professional scene with our internships, to UH Esports now in looking at getting jobs with Good Jobs Hawaii and other companies. The next step, I believe, is to take seriously the ability to collaborate on research. I believe that there is a lot of goodwill that can be drummed up, a lot of great discussions, theoretically rich ideas that can be brought forth to say, this is something that I believe is the right time for that discussion. And I've thrown out 3 different perspectives that I've highlighted throughout the discussion in today's keynote, is to say, yes, we need to recognize those island-centric perspectives that can shape global esports as a discourse. Number 2, to respect those indigenous values that we bring as Native Hawaiians. So it's not just the island itself, but when we think about indigenous values, nature, island, culture, and people are not considered separate at all. And it's part of, when I did the book chapter in Toby's edited volume, when I talked about esports infrastructures, at the end of my chapter, I did put a warning out, and possibly a new avenue for research is to say that when we're thinking about arenas and stadiums and labs, I think the next step in us conceptualizing esports infrastructure is to say, what's the role that nature will play as we move forward? Because I know that in the gaming industry, we have this kind of very cute, classic metaphor to touch grass for students to get out. But what if the grass is actually a part of the structure? Okay? I firmly believe that there can be some really generative discussions around research in esports and infrastructure in blurring the lines and kind of bringing down the divisions between inside and outside. Right? So again, I want to thank Toby for bringing me on for that book chapter, because this was an idea that I was playing with for a very long time, in the sense that when we talk about sustainability, we talk about inside and we talk about outside. And I think there's room for us to say that these things are not separate, or should not be separate, perhaps in the future. And finally, islands as agents of change. Now, yes, islands are isolated. Okay, certainly they are. But as I noted in the keynote, is I hope that we can also find ways in which islanders challenge and complicate the notion of isolation, because they always do, and they always are able to make those inroads to the world outside of them, and they have to. If they don't, they die in many ways. So with that, I want to thank you for taking time to listen to the keynote, and mahalo. And my contact information is at the bottom, my email on the left, my LinkedIn in the middle, and our Instagram on the right. And classic Faker. This is the only picture of Faker doing the shaka. So, we hold that in the vaults. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think